Did you know that a lot of metabolic diseases are rooted in blood sugar management? And what I mean by metabolic disease is our lifestyle illnesses like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, Alzheimer's. All of these things are rooted in blood sugar issues. And blood sugar management is really important in metabolic health and our longevity. And although detoxification is crucial this day and age to health and well-being, this kind of talks about something that is more lifestyle related. Detoxification, yes, it's lifestyle related, but it's also exposure related. But blood sugar management, we really want to focus on how we're living our life. So let's get started. This is one of my favorite topics. Did you know that the body can either burn sugar or fat as fuel? It can't do both at the same time. So if both are available, the body will choose sugar. Sugar, also known as glucose, is the body's preferred energy source. It's the primary fuel source and it's readily available from carbohydrates and, of course, sugar. However, it can lead to blood sugar fluctuations. Our body burns fat when glucose is scarce. So fat's the second choice. The body shifts to using fat for energy, which is more stable and sustainable. Fat provides a long-lasting energy source and helps avoid energy crashes. When our body's burning fat, and that doesn't mean you have to be eating fat, but when our body is burning fat, the blood sugar is going to be more stable as opposed to going up and down when we're eating carbohydrates. The problem is that in today's modern society, there is no shortage of sugar. And I'm going to talk about this in a couple of slides, but in the old days, there was a shortage of sugar, and the human body was really good at moving back and forth between fat burning and sugar burning. But now, most of the foods that most people eat have carbohydrates in them, and we're going to remain in sugar burning mode most of the time. So what does that mean? We don't burn fat. So what is our blood sugar? Our blood sugar is the main source of energy for our cells. It comes from food we eat, especially carbohydrates, and the body regulates blood sugar to maintain energy levels and prevent spikes or dips. A balanced blood sugar is important because it supports efficient energy production. Improper regulation can lead to chronic conditions like insulin resistance, diabetes, and fatigue. It affects your mental clarity, your mood, and your physical performance. When we eat, especially carbohydrates, our blood sugar rises. The pancreas then releases insulin to help cells absorb glucose and lower the blood sugar. Insulin also helps to store excess glucose in the liver and muscles for future energy use. So insulin helps the liver and our muscles to convert glucose into glycogen, which is like the storage form of glucose. And when there is a glucose shortage, the liver and our muscles can release glucose in the form of glycogen. But when the body spends all of its time regulating blood sugar, it begins to malfunction. And this happens because we're constantly being exposed to insulin. So what is insulin? Insulin signals the cells in your body to take in glucose from the bloodstream for energy. Insulin signals the cell in your body to take in glucose from the bloodstream for energy. So just to provide a small analogy here, insulin knocks on your cell's door and says, hey, can you let my friend glucose in? It also helps to store glucose as glycogen, like I mentioned before. It also prevents excess fat storage. So in the right amount, insulin prevents excess fat storage. It helps to maintain fat stores for energy while preventing unnecessary fat accumulation. However, there's a caveat here. When insulin exists in excess, as it often does with our standard American diet, aka the SAD diet, it can also signal fat cells to get larger. So I don't know if you know this, but we don't make new fat cells. They just shrink and get bigger, shrink and get bigger. We don't create new fat cells. And insulin triggers, when insulin exists in excess, which it often does in the average American, it triggers the fat cells to get larger. So what is insulin resistance? I'm sure you have heard the term insulin resistance. I think people generally know what this means, but let's look at it a little deeper. Insulin resistance is a condition where the body's cells become less responsive to insulin. So again, using the analogy that I spoke about before, when the insulin knocks on the door and says, "Hey cell, can you let my friend glucose in?" The cell says, "Sorry, we're full. We have plenty of glucose in our cell." So no, and it slams the door. What happens then? The glucose stays in the bloodstream. And what happens then? The body releases more insulin to help manage that glucose. And insulin knocks on the door and the cell says, "Nope, sorry, still full." Right? So now we have an excess of glucose in our bloodstream, which is high blood sugar, and we have an excess of insulin as well. So the cells don't accept the glucose in, and the blood glucose remains elevated. And like I said, the pancreas produces more insulin to try to compensate, and the body struggles. And many Americans, a huge portion of Americans, have insulin resistance going on without even knowing it. They don't know it till it's already pre-diabetes. Well, that is long into the issue. So, do you have insulin resistance? There are 3 blood tests that you should ask your provider for. I like to run the hemoglobin A1C, which will tell you if you're diabetic, pre-diabetic, or just fine. Your fasting glucose level, which again, if it's in normal range, it could still indicate that you have some degree of insulin resistance. So normal is up to about 100, but really you want your fasting glucose level around 85. Okay, we don't want it too low either. We don't want it below 70, but we don't want it really higher than 85. So there's this range of like 85 to 100 that would give me a little evidence that you are experiencing some degree of insulin resistance. And then we have our fasting insulin. So you also want to check your fasting insulin. And again, the normal range isn't the optimal range. So you want to have a provider that's knowledgeable about this. And you really want your fasting insulin to be around 2 or 3. So if you go to a regular provider and they run your labs and they run your A1C and your fasting glucose, they most likely won't run your fasting insulin. And your fasting glucose is 99 and your A1C is 5.4, which all indicates that you're not pre-diabetic and that your fasting glucose is normal. You could be missing the warning signs of insulin resistance. And if you're missing these warning signs, you're not going to make lifestyle changes. And then you don't find out until you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. Still reversible, but there's some damage done. So, like I said, then we don't know we're on the path to metabolic disease until we present with prediabetes, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, or chronic pain. And these are all things that we could have known more about if we just looked at the blood test differently. So I'm going to tell you a story. Yes, the body prefers glucose for energy. But why does the body prefer glucose for energy? Think back to the hunter and gatherer days. And I believe that that is the natural state of the human. I always say, I like my heat. I like my hot showers. I'm not saying I want to be a hunter and gatherer again. Okay. But I do believe that that's the natural state of the human that we need to reference back to really evaluate what's going on today. So in the hunter and gatherer days, if you think about, I'm in New Jersey, right? So let's think about the beginning of the year, right? The beginning of the year is in winter. What would a hunter and gatherer eat in winter in New Jersey? Well, I think the hunter and gatherer would do a lot of fasting. And when you're fasting, your body is in ketosis, which means that you are burning fat. So your body would be burning fat in the fasting mode, and then you'd occasionally kill an animal and you'd eat meat, right? There's really not anything high in sugar in season or available during the winter. So this is a phase of the human rhythm where people would be fat burners. Then we move into spring. If you pay attention around you outside as to what comes into season in spring, it's actually the bitter greens. The bitter greens are present in spring, and they are the detoxification greens that really detoxify our body. I think our body did all these natural things naturally in a normal rhythm, right? So we have ketosis, an occasional animal, then we have the bitter greens. The bitter greens, again, you're going to stay in ketosis. You're not going to be burning sugar, and you are going to be detoxifying, okay? Then in summer, We get the more low glycemic fruits in season. So again, depending on how abundant they are, you would have periods of sugar burning and you would have periods of ketosis. You would probably have some degree of fasting, and you certainly would not be eating from 7 a.m. till midnight every single day, every 2 hours. You just wouldn't. Right? So your liver would have time to relax. Your pancreas would have time to relax. Your body would have time to burn fat, right? And then it's not until the fall that the higher glycemic fruits come into season. I believe that you can't argue with nature. Nature is beautiful by design. And you're having the higher glycemic foods in season in the fall because you are going to need to fatten up for your fasting phase in the winter. So we really wouldn't even be in sugar burning mode until summer and fall. So the body really wasn't meant, although sugar is noted as the primary preference for the body to burn energy, the body would have so many periods of time where it was burning fat and not sugar. You want to have oatmeal for breakfast, right? Oatmeal and some fruit, sugar burning, not necessarily like bad for you, but sugar burning mode. If you want to have eggs and bacon for breakfast, what are you having with that? Often toast, sugar burning mode. Okay, so just this is food for thought. So, ketosis, I mentioned ketosis in that story, right? Ketosis is a metabolic state where the body burns fat for fuel instead of carbohydrates. It occurs when carbohydrate intake is very low, prompting the liver to produce ketones from our fat tissue, which are used for energy. This stabilizes your blood sugar, helps the body burn fat, and improves mental clarity and focus, and can promote weight loss. I see this all the time with my clients, and honestly, this was a missing piece for me in the weight loss department. I have always eaten clean for many, many years now. And by clean, I mean non-toxic, whole foods. And if I had processed foods, they would have like 4 or 5 ingredients, not like 25 with some MSG. And I always thought to myself, man, I'm like eating clean. Like, how am I not losing weight? This is why I was still keeping myself in sugar burning mode and really never giving my body a break from burning sugar and give it time to burn some fat. So what do we do about all this, right? This is the question, right? I never want to give you this information without giving you some problem solving skills, right? So what do we do? It depends on where you're starting. Always small sustainable changes are going to be the best for everybody, okay? Overhauls work, but they're often not sustainable. So where are you starting? The first place you need to start is be kind to yourself. That is going to be the starting place for everything, right? Offer grace to yourself and be kind. With food, we want to start by eating food your body can recognize. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you might just want to switch to foods that your body can recognize, like real food, like meat and vegetables and fruit, right? Unprocessed foods or the cleaner versions of foods that you like. For example, my kids feel very gypped that they are not allowed to eat Doritos, but we buy an organic late July brand of chips for them that taste like Doritos. So again, it's like, where are you starting? What are your goals, right? My kids' goals are to be normal, to eat normal food. So yes, am I promoting whole foods for them? Sure, absolutely. But they're also getting some processed foods that are not as bad as the processed foods they really want. You have to also teach your body to be more metabolically flexible. You want your body to be able to switch back and forth from ketosis to sugar burning, which I believe in the hunter and gatherer days and long after that, the human body was able to switch back and forth, right? I don't have carbohydrates available. Okay, I'll burn fat. If the carbohydrates are available, you're not going to burn fat. But if they're not available, you will burn fat, right? But now, have you ever gotten hangry? Have you ever felt dizzy or lightheaded if you don't eat in time? All of these things are signs that you're not metabolically flexible. Your body is no longer able to switch from sugar burning mode to ketosis easily because your body's so used to burning sugar, it doesn't know what to do when it doesn't have some form of sugar or carbohydrate to burn. One way to help that is to practice intermittent fasting. If you normally eat from 7 a.m. till midnight, try eating from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. If you normally eat from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m., try eating from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. Try skipping breakfast or having a late breakfast and eat from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Try to decrease your window of your eating. I know some people call intermittent fasting 12 hours, like an intermittent fast. In my opinion, that's just normal eating, right? I'm not saying I haven't had midnight snacks in my lifetime. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm not saying that's normal either. For women, make sure that you are aware, and I can help with this. Make sure that you're aware of when you should be fasting and when you shouldn't with your menstrual cycle, because there are times where your body likes fasting more than other times. You can also try lower carb, eating real food, but lower carb, right? And then I love Michael Pollan's statement of eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. You really can't go wrong with that. And listen to your body's cues, right? If it doesn't feel good, consider. But there also could be a time where you're adjusting to learning how to go into ketosis, and that could be uncomfortable. Again, I'm here as a reference. Stress causes increased cortisol levels, which lead to insulin resistance. This is because elevated cortisol can interfere with the action of insulin, making it harder for cells to absorb glucose from the body. So what do we do about this? We want to take time in stillness, try some meditating, figure out what makes you happy. Fill up your own cup. You want to paint, draw, hike, say no, pray, meditate. Whatever works for you, I want you to try it. What fills your cup? Stress. Stress actually causes increased cortisol levels, which leads to insulin resistance. This is because elevated cortisol can interfere with the action of insulin, making it harder for the cells to absorb glucose from the blood. So stress is really an important part of your metabolic health, right? A lot of metabolic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, has been linked to stress. So what can we do about it? We live in a really fast-paced world. But really there are small changes you can make that can make a big change in your overall health and well-being and your stress levels. Taking time in stillness, meditation, fill your own cup, whatever that means to you. Some people like to paint. Some people like to do art. Some people like to do pottery. Some people like to hike out in nature. Some people need to say no. That's a good way to fill your own cup. Say no. Pray and meditate. There's plenty of things that make people feel fulfilled. And I'm not talking about like sitting and scrolling on Facebook. We all scroll, most of us do. I'm not talking about that. That is quiet time. That is kind of like, I know a lot of people like do that when their kids go to bed for themselves, but you need to do something that makes you feel fulfilled as well. Movement. So when you exercise, your muscles need more energy. And then they take in more glucose. So the muscle cells, when insulin knocks on the door, the muscle cells say, sure, I have room for more glucose. Bring it on in, right? So we're burning more energy. We're going to use more glucose. So that's going to make you more efficient at absorbing glucose without the need for more insulin. And this helps to lower your blood sugar levels. And when you exercise regularly, your muscles become more sensitive to insulin, meaning they require less insulin to absorb the glucose. Insulin goes to knock on the door and they're like, no, I know glucose, and glucose. So this reduces the strain on your pancreas and lowers your overall levels of insulin in the bloodstream. Sleep. Here's that sleep thing again. Adequate sleep helps maintain proper insulin sensitivity. Sleep deprivation actually causes decreased insulin sensitivity. Lack of sleep can impair your the action of insulin, leading to insulin resistance. Studies show that even just one night of poor sleep can reduce insulin sensitivity by as much as 25%. Increased appetite. Sleep deprivation increases level of the hunger hormone ghrelin and decreases the satiety hormone leptin. So basically, the hunger hormone goes up and your I'm full and satisfied hormone goes down. This promotes overeating and weight gain and can worsen insulin resistance. Also, like I've said in the sleep video, when you're not sleeping, you're going to be more likely to eat. This is when midnight snacking happens, right? So what do we need to do? 7 to 9 hours of sleep is important. Consistently getting quality sleep helps regulate blood glucose levels and supports metabolic health. Sleep also helps in the secretion of growth hormone and cortisol, which are important for metabolic processes, including insulin sensitivity. So it helps your cortisol levels, right? Your specific sleep plan will depend on your starting point. We talk about this in the sleep video, right? Wherever you're starting, make small sustainable changes to your baseline. And you also want to reduce or eliminate blue light at least 1 hour before bed. That's those screens. And you are already on your way to improved insulin sensitivity because detoxification is another way that you can improve your overall metabolic health. It improves your mitochondrial function, which improves every cell's function in the body, including the pancreas, the liver, and the muscles. This will improve your function of the body, your glucose metabolism, your insulin production and usage, and help the body return to its natural state, which is the state of health. So congratulations, you are already on your way. And with some other changes, you can really make a big difference in your metabolic health. So this was made for the Tuesday night calls. It's just one of the many presentations I do. And this is where people would ask questions. But if you have questions about this presentation, feel free to use the Facebook group and ask the question, and let's get some answers going. All right, until next time, have a good one.